What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so I know my audience, man. I know that a lot of you guys are LeBron haters. I know that a good portion of my audience are Golden State Warriors fans, which is weird because 2016, 17, I was seen as probably 18. I was seen as an anti-Warriors channel, but I got a lot of guys over here that are Warrior fans. Alright, because I guess they sense that my anti-LeBronism outweighs my anti-Warrior fans. But he don't like us, but he really don't like LeBron, so we're going to rock with him through the war, by default. But I know at the core of my audience, though, are Bulls fans, man. So Bulls fans, Jordan fans. So this video will be probably like memory lane for you dudes, man. Today marks it's hard for me to even say this date, this anniversary of my mouth, but it's the 25th anniversary of Jordan's return to basketball. Actual return, like game. He made the announcement on March 18th of 95, but the actual game against the Pacers was March 19th. And his performance in the game actually was terrible by his standards. It was understandable. He hadn't played a game in, 17, 18 months or something like that. I think he shot 9 for 28 from the floor. I think he missed something like his first 8 or 9 shots. I remember him being infamously short on a layup that just went in. He was way, way, way rusty. But it wasn't that the performance itself was any of the story. It was just the fact that he was back. Picasso had returned. Michelangelo had returned to basketball. And it was stunning. It was as stunning as his exit. Back then we didn't have social media. We didn't have these leaked reports that can just go through social media and be at everybody's fingertip within minutes or seconds, sometimes even. Information was slower. Information could be withheld. Things could be done in secrecy so much easier back then than today's world. So people have their theories, their conspiracy theories as to why Jordan left the game. The story is that he did it because of wanted to fulfill his father's wish of going to play baseball. His father having been murdered in the summer of 1993, unfortunately. We all have our theories. I honestly am now starting to believe that there may have been more to it. Okay, I believe it may have been linked to the gambling. But I don't want to sully this video with that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So the first year without Mike, the Bulls, you know what I'm saying, we did good. We far exceeded expectations. We won 55 games. Okay, mostly because of the coaching that we had in place, and also the overhaul of the roster. And last but not least, Scottie Pippen was entering his prime years. And to me, anybody that wants to call Scottie Pippen a second banana, that season alone convinced me that Scottie Pippen was actually a superstar who just took a back seat as an all-star and as a sidekick. But Scottie Pippen, you know what I'm saying, for the most part, although he had his moments where, he disappointed you as a player, but that season really cemented him as an all-time great. But the next year, reality hit home. When the Bulls lost Horace Grant, they lost that interior presence. You know what I'm saying? They lost that interior presence that he brought, and that leadership also that he brought. and that championship experience, just experience period, that he brought. And one of the weaknesses of that team is that we just didn't have any rebounding and we were soft down low. And because there was no rebounding, other players, including perimeter guys, had to kind of step up and help in that department. But the Bulls, by the end of February, weren't even in the playoffs. Like, the Bulls had a under 500 record, and it didn't look like the Bulls were going to go to playoffs. But the Bulls kind of went on a slight winning streak, more or less. And it was during the beginning of March that you started hearing some rumors that because there was this lockout, the strike that went on in Major League Baseball, there was more and more rumors that Jordan was playing basketball. Scrimmages, just one-on-one pickup games, and he kept playing these games. Then all of a sudden he kept arriving at, then I think it was it United Center then? Yeah, he was arriving at the United Center, and you heard these rumors from B.J. Armstrong and whatnot, Scottie Pippen, that he had been playing with the Chicago Bulls team. So you start putting two and two together. Well, why is he playing with the team if he's not trying to come back? And then it was that televised game about a week before he came back when Scottie Pippen pointed to a pair of Air Jordans that he was wearing and then, basically saying, come back, Mike, come back. So that really fueled speculation. And you started hearing what the coaches and players were saying, and you read between lines, and it looked like his return was all but imminent. And then all of a sudden, on March 18th, in one of the briefest messages that went global at that time, before social media, that message was, I'm back. That's all it took. And the sports world was abuzz. The king was coming back to reclaim his throne. It's easy to see what could motivate the guy. He retired at age 30 at the pinnacle. But in that too short year period, all of a sudden, you had this change of the landscape of the NBA. Now all of a sudden, you had Akeem Olajuwon, who was considered the best player in the league. Now you had rising stars at that time, like Penny Hardaway. Shaq, who was a rookie when Jordan played his last season, Shaq had become a force, a 29 point per game, 12 rebound, 3-shot blocking force. You had rookies that would, remain stars in the league for many years. Well, Jason Kidd many more years than the other one, but Grant Hill, who would become arguably the best all-around player in the league in 3 years. You had Jason Kidd doing what he was doing with the Dallas Mavericks, but you had all these new faces in the league now. Out with the old. Isaiah Thomas was gone. You know, um, some of these old rivalries gone. Bird was long gone. Magic was long gone. Now you had these new guys. You had Jimmy Jackson, Jamal Mashburn, Glenn Rice, Steve Smith, Tim Hardaway. Who was there when Jordan played the first time? But still, you had all these new guys that had stepped up and had taken over the league. But at the same time, even though the league was in good hands when it came to star power, there was still this feeling that there was an illegitimacy there. Sort of like the same thing, I'd say, in the late 60s with boxing. Yeah, you had Jimmy Ellis and you had George Foreman, and you had a young Ernie Shavers, you had Joe Frazier, ultimately being crowned champion. But it wasn't the same because you felt like Muhammad Ali, by him not being there, it took away what Joe Frazier did. He didn't really win the title. It was handed to him. You know what I'm saying? Um, that's one thing that I think And I know some Houston Rocket fans aren't like me saying this, but in the back of their heads, they're going to have a slight point with this. That's what irritates them about the what if Michael played thing, because to them, they feel like it takes away the legitimacy of what they did, which it shouldn't have. Okay? They won those championships fair and square. And you can make the argument that they could have beaten the Bulls too. They did it in the regular season at the time. But still, this was a whole bunch of new challenges for Mike. At this point in time, he wasn't even, Reggie Miller had asserted himself as the new Knicks killer. So he came back, and ultimately, the first brief season was mixed. It was, he had some good moments. He had the 32 points in game winner against Atlanta Hawks. He had that great game against the Knicks where he scored 55 points. He had a couple other really good performances, but he had a lot of bad shooting nights. A lot of 9 for 27, 9 for 29 type games. He only shot 41% from the floor that year, although inexplicably he also shot 50% from three that year in those 17 games. And more than ominous was the fact that in the playoffs, even though he averaged 31 points a game, he also averaged 4 turnovers per game, which doesn't sound like Michael Jordan, who was always known for taking care of the basketball for the most part. And he also was inexplicably, you know, fading down the stretch of games. He might start off a game hot. He might start off a game, with 30 points the first 3 quarters on 15 or 20 shooting. And then in the fourth quarter, he might go 1 for 7, 3 points, 4 turnovers. That doesn't sound like Michael Jordan. That's what we were seeing. And ultimately, the Bulls fell in 6 to the Orlando Magic. And I remember as a Bulls fan being like, I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. He lost. Jordan doesn't lose playoff series. That's something we hadn't seen in 5 years. The Bulls lose a playoff series. So, what I remember about that offseason, everybody that didn't like the Chicago Bulls, it was the same thing. He was great, but his time is over. He's 32 years old. He's falling off. Penny's the new guy. Penny's going to be the lead, in a couple of years. It's going to be Shaq and Penny. Kim Olajuwon's the best player. Back-to-back titles. Jordan's washed up. He's a bum. And then history happened. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to go into detail. We got Dennis Rodman to help show up those problems. The main problem that we were lacking that year, the Bulls were focused, and Jordan was, you know, Jordan reasserted himself as the alpha male leader of that team, totally. Whether it, you know, whether it had to lead to him putting his hands on some guys, or driving some guys away from the team. Um, it took what it was going to take forever him to accomplish his goal. And it was a ride, man. If it was a Bulls fan, man, it was that whole 1990s decade was a ride from 91 all the way to 98. And sometimes you do wonder what would have happened if he never retired. I think personally, because I know he didn't want to retire in 98, he was kind of forced to. I do believe that the Bulls could have beaten the Rockets in 94. I don't think they would have beaten them in 95. It would have taken a tremendous performance by Jordan. I mean, he would have had to probably average something like his Phoenix Suns numbers to beat that team. And I do think that the Bulls would have beaten the Spurs in 99. So I think Jordan could have ultimately won 8 NBA championships. I really do. Um, But that's it, you know what I'm saying? He didn't play for stats toward the end. He played for championships. And, but that was it, man. You know what I'm saying? It just was a moment in time that you were a Bulls fan. You knew that greatness had returned. Order was restored to an extent. It was going to take a while, but order was restored to the balance of the NBA. Things were right again, and it just took a while. You know, '96 to me, even though I know the Warriors won 73 games, but that '72 season, man, that was the best team I ever saw. You know, that was the best. '97 was a good encore. Not quite like '96, but '97 was great. '98 was sweet because it was not as inevitable as the other championships. Like that one took every ounce of grit, sweat, and determination from Jordan and Pippen, and others. Rodman was already starting to. By that year, Rodman was starting to become Rodman again. Um, off the court issues, but the Bulls were able to win the third championship, and that's something too, man. To win three NBA championships, this is why I have such high regard for Michael Jordan. There's only been a handful of teams to win at least three consecutive titles. The 1950s Minneapolis Lakers, Bill Russell Celtics, okay, Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, Kobe and Shaq Lakers. That's only four teams, all right? Even the Warriors weren't able to do it because of injuries. Injuries got in the way. Four teams. Jordan's teams did it twice. They did it twice. Twice. That's that's incredible. Especially considering like when they did it, there was 27, 28, 29 teams. 29 teams in the NBA, I believe. It that's incredible. When Bill Russell did it, initially it was, you know, 8 to 12 teams or so. 8 to 12, 14 teams. I mean, that's impressive, but for the Bulls to have done that in the league when there was 27 to 29 teams is unbelievable. Twice? Nah. The guy's the GOAT.